Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation, Piazza Italiana, Learning Italian through Virtual Reality. My name is Amy Chambliss, and I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Lucia Binotti. We are foreign language and literature professors at a major public university, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And we've been very excited to see an increased interest in exploring the role of virtual reality in higher education. We find it of particular value in its potential for language learners who are often at a remove from the authentic spaces where their languages are lived and spoken. A lot of our students have opportunities to go abroad and study for a semester, but by no means all of them, and no more so did we feel this need than during the pandemic. As we're considering the application of these VR experiences, and as we've been creating an environment and experience this past year, we've really focused on building our theoretical grounding in these technologies to understand how they can be leveraged, particularly in our discipline. As we've made our choices for design, we've considered both the pedagogy, the general pedagogy of our discipline, as well as the learning objectives of our individual courses. And we just like to use our evolving project as an example of how we consider these factors. So on this slide here, you see some of the most important pedagogical paradigms for foreign language learning. The first, task-based learning, is essentially the idea that students learn by putting themselves in a particular social or cultural space to carry out a communicative task, where they have to assimilate a variety of linguistic elements to achieve a particular communicative goal. Those goals could be transactional, like if a student is figuring out how to shop for ingredients they need to make a dinner. It could also be interpersonal if they're sharing their preferences with a friend or acquaintance about what they like to eat, how they like to shop, how they travel, and so on. The next element is the idea of student-centered learning, which is exactly how it sounds, that after some kind of minimal input from an instructor, that students should be able to have maximum autonomy in their learning practices and carrying out their activities in as authentic and creative an environment as possible. Then multimodal learning is this idea, this assumption that learning in general, and in this case, language learning, functions most effectively when it's done through a variety of methods, visual, auditory, as well as kinesthetic. And finally, cultural learning assumes that our language learners will also be exposed to and, in fact, encouraged to reflect upon the unique social and cultural environments in which their interactions are embedded. And so they'll learn the value of connecting beyond their local learning community to those of a more globalized world. And so next, I'd like to talk just for a second about the particular learning objectives of the course in which our set of VR experiences are embedded. And this is a second semester Italian course. And so some of the objectives of this course are on the slide. Students, we have two settings that we've been working on, social settings that constitute the two experiences and environments. One is a gelateria, which is the Italian word for an ice cream shop. And the second is the Mercato, which is like a little kind of artisanal or specialty market. And so students in this setting are asking for information. They're also having transactions in which they pay for an ice cream, order an ice cream. One of the ways that they kind of learn cultural differences in this context is, for example, having two separate transactions in the ice cream shop whereby they pay for a particular size and type like cone versus cup at one register, and then they take the receipt to a counter, and that's where they have to state the flavors that they want. There are also opportunities for them to practice these grammatical structures that are different expressions that you use when you express different quantities of things. And so in the environment of the Mercato, when they're examining like fruit and produce, fruit and vegetables, they have to request different amounts of it using these different grammatical structures in a kind of a gaming activity in that particular environment. Then they also have opportunities to share ideas about preferences and even to make comparisons between the kind of dynamics and layouts of like the Italian coffee house, or in this case, ice cream store, and the ones that they find in their hometowns in the US. And now I'm gonna let my colleague and friend Lucia talk to you a little bit more.
Thank you, Amy. Well, as Amy just mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the ideation and design phase of the building of the Piazza Italiana virtual environment requires us to consistently ponder a cluster of exquisitely theoretical questions, which investigational answers are at the fodder of debate among philosophers, cognitive and computer scientists, and academic designers, as well as come up with applied solutions that best respond to the limited affordances of WebXR, while at the same time building a compelling prototype. So here in the video, you can see our friend Brian acting like a student inside the environment, and he's going around, and as you can see, we have him utilizing some of the major internal affordances of Mozilla, meaning the fact that Mozilla hubs, meaning the fact that you can move around, and the fact that you can use, you can lift objects, and you are in this very 3D environment. But at the same time, he is also using external, what I call the external affordances, meaning things like we can take a selfie and the students can connect with each other via the chat. Now I guess I need to stop that. And while the exponential increase of peer-reviewed scholarly studies are defining the grammar and rhetoric of immersive, setting research standards, and mapping the core research areas that integrate the development of Web3 and the metaverse, we are still humbled by the realization that much of what we are thinking and doing has never been tried before. So these are some of the things that we are experimenting, and we are learning a lot. So, for instance, as we embark in our next prototype of the Piazza Italiana project, Il Mercato, the market, we plan to dig deeper into the educational affordances provided by the internal and external structure of Mozilla hubs and Spoke, which I was mentioning before, but we also want to start exploring other platforms that might offer better success, sustainability, and portability long-term, and that going forward might allow for the creation of assessments and evaluation. So the idea is eventually to have a textbook, let's call it textbook, of immersive learning units like the ones that we just show you. We believe that creating a whole VR textbook is a strong proposal for the future. But at this point, we are unable to rely on low-code, no-code, more readily generated XR experiences where it's possible to embed achievement and success metrics and evaluation tools. The path is long and curvy, but we have managed to eat very well, or we are eating very well while we are on it. And we thank you for your attention. And as it seems that we only have questions and very few answers, we are eagerly awaiting your insights, suggestions, and practical solutions. Thank you again.